Over the years, the town of Albuquerque, New Mexico has had multiple different airports in its history. And so I made this map compiling together all the known airports that I could find information about. Oxnard Field opened in 1928, making it Albuquerque's first ever airport. In a way, it kind of served as a midway point between the east and west coast. It mainly served airlines such as Transatlantic Air Transport and many others. Oxnard Field closed in the 1940s, and the former site of the airport is now on what is considered Kirtland Air Force Base property. There isn't a definitive known date as to which West Mesa Airport opened, however, it's said to have already been operating by 1929. The airport was located in the southwestern portion of town and had the runway configuration of an 8-pointed star. Roughly 10 years later, in 1939, the airport would permanently close, and over the years it would continue to deteriorate until it was built over by land developments in the 90s and 2000s. Seven Bar, or Alameda Airport, was located in the northwestern part of Albuquerque. It's not yet known when exactly the airport opened, but it had already existed by 1949, according to satellite imagery. The airport continued to operate until its permanent closure in the 90s in order to make way for the Cottonwood Mall, which would be built directly on top of the former site of the airport. However, in the airport's memory, two streets were named after it, being 7 Bar Loop and Old Airport Road, both of which are located right near Cottonwood Mall. Coronado Airport first opened in the northeastern heights of Albuquerque in 1961. It continued to operate until 2001, when Sandia Pueblo bought the land that the airport was on and closed it. Although, oddly enough, even though the airport had already been closed in 2001, the hangar buildings had stayed there until 2006-2007. At some point around 2003-2004, a drainage ditch / arroyo was built directly through the southern end of runway 1735. Ever since then, the airport has been left to deteriorate, and unlike a lot of the other airports on this list, Coronado is one of few that still remain. In June 2024, I paid a visit to the former airport myself. The Cutter Car Airport, with 4 different runways, was found to have been open as early as 1944 in Albuquerque's Northeast Heights area. Later on in its life, the airport would end up getting a 5th runway going north to south. Eventually, the airport closed in 1954, and housing developments began building on top of it. In 1945, a plot of land right next to the Cutter Car Airport would be purchased. The year after, in 1946, the Graham Bell Airport would open for service. The airport seemingly closed in 1952, and similar to Qatar Airport, housing developments were built right on top of the property. In 1946, Skycourt Airport opened right next to both Graham Bell and Qatar Airport. Similar to West Mesa Airport, the runways had a configuration of a six-pointed star. This labeled aerial view shows just how close in proximity all three airports were to each other. Skycourt Airport would end up being the shortest lived out of all three airports, only lasting until around 1949. Also similar to the two airports, in the years coming, land developments would also be built directly on top of Skycourt Airport property. At some point around the early 1950s, an airport was constructed just west of the Rio Grande River. This airport, known as the Paradise Acres Airport, consisted of a singular diagonal runway. Not much is known about this airport except that it more than likely closed at some points between 1961 and 1969. El Rancho was a private airport that was opened in the west side of Albuquerque in 1952. It remained open until around 1959 when it suddenly closed due to unknown reasons. The airport would remain abandoned until properties were eventually built on top of it. It's not exactly known when the Sandia Base airfield definitively opened, however, it's said to have been around 1962 or 1963. The airfield ultimately lasted until some point around the early 1970s, at which point it was closed and abandoned.